Yo, what's up, guys? Just got back from Havana, Cuba. It was a really amazing experience playing at the Havana Jazz Festival, as well as another festival that was called like the Jazz Plaza Festival. It was a really an amazing time, an incredible experience getting to play those festivals and also work with some really amazing students at schools there. Thanks so much to De Ramiro Gonzalez for having me down there and featuring me with his band. Today we were actually supposed to be heading to Austin, Texas, but unfortunately because of inclement weather down there, we got a lot of freezing ice on the roads and a whole bunch of cancellations happening across the city. So we decided to postpone our concert there. We were super excited, especially seeing all the ticket sales. It was really exciting for us to be coming down there this week, but we have postponed it to a later date that I'm sure will be announced by the end of the day. We'll probably put it in text down in this video. And so we will see you guys for that show once it's rescheduled. And coming up over these next few weeks, a bunch of touring with Chris Botti. I'll be playing in Honolulu and Tokyo at the Blue Note Jazz Clubs there. We'll be doing a week at each of those clubs, and then we'll be heading to Taiwan, where we're going to be playing 5 dates around the country in Taiwan. And after that, I'll be playing in Poland, leading a quartet at a jazz festival in Poland. So lots of stuff coming up. Just make sure to check out my page on Bands in Town. You can follow me there to get notifications when I'm coming to your area. I hope to see you guys out on tour. But today, with this unexpected day off, we decided to film a quick YouTube video for you here with my manager, Austin, behind the camera. And we wanted to get into some themes that I often find in people's development, things that really can hold you back if you have some bad habits in your practicing. So we wanted to address these and use it as an opportunity to actually show you guys some things that we're going to talk about in a masterclass that I'm doing this Sunday for the launch of our mentorship program, which is going to be a really cool program where every week, if you join this program, you're going to be able to get full access to weekly masterclasses by a host of world-class artists. And we're also going to be creating a catalog of these sessions that you'll get unlimited restreaming access to. So if you join the program, you'll be able to check out everything that ends up coming out into this catalog of masterclass sessions. And anytime you can come to a live session, you'll be able to ask questions, you'll be able to volunteer to play, you're going to be able to interact with the artists, and you'll be up there on screen with them. So make sure to check this out. It's going to be a really awesome opportunity to get some really valuable insight into a whole range of topics. So for this first mentorship session, I'm going to be going into practical techniques for jazz improvisation, which brings us into what we're going to talk about today, which is a lot of people practice in ways that aren't actually practical for their improvisation. So the first reason you're probably not getting better, or at least not making the improvement that you should be in your practicing, is because you're probably practicing the same thing. It's really easy to get into a rut where you're just practicing the same thing over and over, day after day, week after week, month after month, even year after year, because you feel like you haven't perfected it. That's okay. The reality is you're never going to really perfect anything. It gets to a point where you want to move on and just make sure that you're covering new territory. What I personally do in my practicing is I only practice one topic about 20 minutes at a time. So for 20 minutes, I might be working on something for scales or technique, or I might be working on a new song, or I might be trying to transcribe something new. I only do it about 20 minutes at a time, because after that, you're going to find that you start to have degrading returns. And what I mean by that is that you're not going to be benefiting as much from practicing that topic because you start to lose focus. Enter Emma. You're going to make me lose focus.
Bro, come up here.
You're going to make me lose focus, man. Okay, the second reason you're probably not getting better is you're probably practicing things that are impractical, especially impractical technique exercises. So what I mean by that is that a lot of times we're taught, as we're growing up or as we're developing as jazz improvisers, we're taught that we should be practicing technique exercises that aren't necessarily going to help you in your improvisation. So for instance, if you run up a scale up and down, that's great for technique. It's a nice thing to practice. It's nice to get full range, especially if you're going up through the whole range of your instrument. However, that is not really a shape that's going to apply to your improvisation. It's not really common that we would just play up a few octaves up and down like that in our improvising. So an example of a diatonic shape that's really good to practice would be the following. So I'm going to play that once more slow. And even slower now. So So with that shape, we actually play something that's a lot more practical for translating into our improvisation. Even though we're playing all notes inside of the major scale, it ends up sounding a lot more like a lick or a phrase that you can use. So with this shape, what we do is we end up playing 1, 2, 3, 5. Then we play that same 1, 2, 3, 5 shape, but we're doing it from the 4. So you could think of it as being 4, 5, 6, 1. Or you could think of it as being another 1, 2, 3, 5 shape starting from the 4 of the scale. Then from there, we're going to arpeggiate up from the 7 of the scale. So we're going to hit essentially a half diminished arpeggio from the 7th degree of the scale. You could also think about it as being a dominant arpeggio. So you can think about it as coming from the F7 concert, and then it's starting on the 3rd of that. And then it arpeggiates 3, 5, 7, 9. And then so we resolve just playing the 5 and 3 at the end. Again, there are a couple different ways you can think about that phrase. There's no right or wrong. The important thing is that it connects the dots for you so you can then start to transpose it. There are a whole bunch of diatonic shapes that I really love, especially shapes that get into outlining major 2/5s and cool chord progressions. This is something that we're going to get into a lot more fully in the masterclass that I'm giving on Sunday. If you can't catch the live masterclass, or if you're watching this YouTube video after that masterclass has already come out, remember, you'll be able to check that out with the unlimited restreaming access that you get as part of the perks of that mentorship program if you want to join our studio there. So just a second ago, I mentioned transposition. That's going to bring us to our third reason that you're probably not getting better. So the third reason you're probably not getting better here is it's important to stop thinking about application and start thinking more about memorization and transposition. So there are a lot of great ways to get into application, but I find oftentimes people get really stuck and start hesitating when they're practicing because before they've even memorized something, they start to think, well, how am I going to apply this? Application is great, but so much of application is going to come naturally if you first memorize, and especially if you transpose. So what are some ways we can do that? One of the most important ways you can memorize things better is if you can get it into your ear. So you want to really get it into your ear, sing it, and focus on the harmonic reasoning of what's going on. In other words, focus on the degrees of the scale, how it lines up with the chord changes, and what the shape is. That's also going to make it a lot easier to transpose. Transposition is not easy. We're going to talk about some more tricks for doing that with more ease in the masterclass. But for now, just think about this. If you were to transpose just one phrase in one different key, one 4-bar phrase in one different key per day, that means in less than 2 weeks, you're going to have that phrase in all 12 keys, which is more 12 key work than most people have ever done in their lives. But when you think about it just bit by bit, chunk by chunk, you can have a phrase down in less than 2 weeks. And that is really going to do a lot for you, especially as it compounds and you start to get a lot more efficient at that process. The better you get at it, the more you're going to be able to get done. So the most important thing is just not shying away from the process in the beginning and just diving right into it. So for instance, if we take that phrase that we just did, and we want to bring that up a half step, let's think about the degrees. So if we bring that up a half step, we're in B flat concert. Now we're going to bring it into B concert. So what's the 1, 2, 3, 5 of B concert? I'm just thinking in terms of numbers. So now what happened next in that shape? We went to the 4 and we did that same 1, 2, 3, 5 step, step, skip shape. Okay, then from there, we arpeggiated up from the 7, right? Or we could think about it coming from the dominant, as we talked about before. We're just using all that same harmonic reasoning. So we're arpeggiating from the 7, and then we resolve with 5 and 3. So that's going to help you transpose a lot faster as compared to if you're going one note at a time and going B flat up a half step is B, C up a half step, C sharp, D up a half step, E flat. That's going to take you forever. But again, if you think about the harmonic reasoning, you're going to get through it a lot faster. All right, the fourth reason you're probably not getting better, you're probably not transcribing. Let's face it, most even advanced improvisers have barely done much transcription work. So we were talking about transposition before and memorization. Now we're going to talk about transcribing in memorization, which is so, so important. So I'm going to make the same reference that I made before as far as just learning bit by bit here, right? So it might feel overwhelming, the idea of memorizing a whole solo, whether you're doing it from a written transcription and trying to put it to memory, or whether you're hearing it yourself and trying to lift one bar at a time. it might feel really overwhelming getting through this whole solo. But remember, so many of the greatest solos in the history of jazz are just one chorus long. So if you take one of the brilliant one chorus Charlie Parker solos, for example, that's going to be 32 measures. So if you memorize literally one measure at a time, then in 1 month, you're going to have a full Charlie Parker solo. Okay, I guess 32 days, 1 month and a couple of days. So most people that I've worked with in, for instance, my text lesson studio, or if I've done a master class somewhere and people have come up to me and, chatted a bit after the class about what they've worked on, most people that I've talked to have never even memorized one Charlie Parker solo, which, is totally understandable. It's very hard stuff. But if you put it in that context, literally anyone could memorize a chorus of Charlie Parker, no matter what level you're at, in 1 month. So you just got to think about it bit by bit. And it kind of comes back to, don't practice the same thing every day. You got to get into something new, whether it's learning the next measure, whether it's learning a whole new exercise. You've got to always be cycling through new material and then circling back when you want to revisit something. But don't get just stuck in the same thing. All right, the fifth reason you're probably not getting better is that you're probably not learning the chord changes, or you're probably not memorizing enough full sets of chord changes. So another thing that I talk to people about is the reality of how important it is to really memorize chord changes. Horn players especially are not very good at making sure that you diligently get down every single chord. Now, if you think about it, a pianist or a guitarist, just to play a song, just to play All the Things You Are, for example, has to know every single chord to comp behind you as a horn player. We as horn players also need to know every single chord so we can accurately play through the harmony and really play the chord changes well. Now, I think one of the reasons why the horn players get caught up on not learning the chord changes well is that we don't have a way of literally playing the chord on our instrument. We just play one note at a time. So it's not very fun to, want to learn a set of chord changes and not actually be able to play the chords. But here's what we can do. Instead of playing the chords on our instrument, try just playing the arpeggio notes consistently all the way through a standard. If you want, what you can do is you can go from 1 all the way up to 9. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. If you do that all the way through a standard, a lot of times you'll be able to just play continuous eighth notes, which makes it fun to hear consistent harmony all the way through. You'll hear it's just a beautiful exercise in itself. So for instance, let's just take a jazz blues form, the way that people typically play the chord changes on a blues and jazz. Now, there are a bunch of different ways that you can play it, but one really common structure is, we're going to put it up on the screen so you can look at it here. And if we play through all the chord changes, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, back down, whenever there's room to do that, it's going to end up sounding like this. Another thing that you can do from there is improvise only using the notes of the chord tones, just using those arpeggio notes all the way through. If you want, you can even try to play a continuous eighth note line just as an exercise to get through these chords in a way that is truly melodic, just playing the chord structures. Now already right there, that's a couple great approaches for this sort of thing, but if you want to get deeper into it, feel free to join us over the weekend. I'll be getting into some cool ways that you can voice lead better with arpeggios and full chord scales and just sounding better with these types of exercises. And of course, application for this type of thing. Would love to see you guys there. But before we wrap up today, let's talk about this last reason you're probably not getting better. The sixth reason here is going to be rhythm. You're probably not practicing rhythm well, and you're probably not using a metronome often enough or the right way. All right, so 2 quick tricks here. One thing that you want to be able to do is take a rhythm, any rhythm you want, and play it consistently all the way through a full form. So let's pick up with the blues where we left off. And let's take 1 2-bar rhythm, but we're going to repeat it all the way through the form over and over and over again. You want to make sure you're playing the exact rhythm. You're going to see this is going to be a lot harder to do than it sounds, and you're going to try to adjust the notes so it fits in the chords all the way through. Again, a lot harder to do than it sounds. So I'll give an example here on a blues. So I started with a rhythm that was pretty tricky, and I started with a 2-bar phrase. You could just do a 1-bar phrase, or a rhythm that's a little easier to play all the way through. But that's going to give you a nice example of how you can incorporate rhythm into your practicing more. And one trick that you want to do with a metronome is you use the metronome in a way where you actually provide the time on your own. It's easy, or easy-ish, to be able to play with the metronome on, for instance, 160, giving yourself every single beat. But if you take it down to 40 BPM and all you get is beat 1, it's going to become a lot harder because then you have to supply the time on your own. Here's an extreme example where I'm going to put the metronome on 20 BPM, but I'll be playing with a pulse of 160 BPM. And so the metronome is essentially only going to be giving me beat 1 of every 2 measures. Now this might be a little hard for you to hear the phone coming through the microphone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a snap, and then I'll play. 4, 1, 2, 3. So again, that's a great way to test the independence of your time. Of course, you want to do this gradually. So you start with a metronome at, for instance, 160. You cut that in half to 80. And you cut that in half to 40. You cut that in half to 20. Again, this might be days, weeks, years of practicing for you to get to this level, but you do it bit by bit every day, just like with everything else, and you're going to get there. All right, guys, so I'd love to see you at this mentorship session over the weekend. If you can't make this one, again, you can get unlimited restreaming access to this mentorship session and all the mentorship sessions that we're going to be putting on at Jazz Lesson Videos. So make sure to check it out, join us in that program, and we will see you there. Thanks so much for watching the video today. If you haven't already, make sure to click subscribe, smash that like button, and we will see you guys next time.